This is Robert Lucier, the MindShare Learning Report, Canada's Learning and Technology e-magazine, and welcome to This Week in Canadian EdTech Special Edition. I'm honored to have join me for a MindShare Learning Moment, Rodd Lucier, better known as the Clever Sheep on Twitter. He is a former educator, now semi-retired, I'll say, from the London Catholic District School Board, an adjunct or instructor at the Faculty of Education at Western Ontario. He's passionate about helping teachers integrate technology in the classroom. And he's one of the most avid golfers and an inspiration to me to knock down my handicap, and perhaps he'll offer me a lesson or two in the future. Rodd, thank you for joining me in this most challenging climate that we're currently living with COVID-19. And I hope you and your family are healthy and well.
Yeah, everybody here is doing okay. We've been very lucky, knock wood, that London region and Kamoka in particular has been pretty quiet with regard to having to deal with the virus. In your neck of the woods, everything's been okay too?
Yeah, everyone's healthy here. We're fortunate to be homebound, co-working from home. Pardon the casual look, but today I decided to don my baseball cap because I'm not showering every day like I normally do. So I'm going for a workout later, but just trying to keep it all balanced and keep the business going and learning. We closed our co-working space, but we've seen a real uptick in the shift to learning and innovation. Necessity is certainly the mother of invention, and here we are 10 years in later, TEDxOntarioEd, which you were one of the key collaborators on, and I was honored to participate as a sponsor. And there's a picture of the gang. What a great opportunity to reflect, and some awesome memories that I came across as the poster as I was cleaning out my office, thanks to the extra time we have on our hands, and reached out to you, and here we are.
Yeah, and it's interesting in this time, like we got all these teachers that are trying to use all these tools for connecting with their kids, with their students, and it's been 10 years, Robert. I think that photo is from a day we met 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Jamie Weir and Ben Hazard, sort of closest to you, approached me a little over 10 years ago and said, hey, we were thinking of running this TEDx event. And Sharon Drummond in the middle and Kim Crawford on the end were a part of a team that we're going to try to bring teachers to do a TED event. Now, going back, TED was new back then. It wasn't even known. We were running a TEDx event here in London, and a lot of people had never heard of TED at that time. But this group of people had been networking and learning together online for at least a few years, probably starting around 2007, 2008 on Twitter and other social platforms, blogging and connecting that way. And then started working on this project. And in the spring of 2010, brought together some really cool speakers. And you said you've got the list of the people that spoke that night. And those recordings are still online. That hashtag TEDxOntarioEd. You could still find the videos of the people that presented that night. And if you're on Flickr, TEDxOntarioEd, you can see the photos of many of the other things that happened there that night.
That's fantastic. And I took a photo and I'm tweeting this out to say that we're on a podcast right now that are being recorded, and to reflect on the memories. And I recall this is the moment in time. Historically, you remember certain things. The iPad had just been released. I had been at a conference in the US, and I bought one, and I came back and I donated the iPad as a gift. And everyone was kind of blown away. What is that thing? Because no one had actually seen it. They hadn't been released in Canada. So there's some other photos from the group that presented. And so quite a transformational period. What strikes me, Alex Koros was online, I guess, at the time. We were doing things back then that are mainstream today. I mean, that's what pioneers like yourself and others do. They have a vision of where they want to go, and somebody's got to push that envelope.
Yeah, and I think about what we did that night 10 years ago. So imagine yourself 10 years ago using computers that are 10 years older than they are now. So uh, we were using technology that was in its infancy, but at the same time, we were bringing in a speaker from Regina live. We brought in someone who was working on the Simpsons television animated program, came in from the States somewhere, I think California.
That's right.
We beamed that live to our audience on the big screen, a couple of our remote speakers, but all of our live speakers, their talks were live streamed. They were live on the internet as they were happening. So we had viewing parties scattered
Yes.
across North America where people were sitting in Winnipeg with a staff of a whole group of people watching these presentations live. So I think back to pushing pixels at the very end of the night. We filled the screen with like 10 or 12 different remote viewing parties that we took their pixels and threw them up on the board in front of our live audience. But that is
Very
something
cool.
that's now, it's kind of like no one would think anything of that now. You think, oh, that's kind of cool that they've got the channels, the Zoom, whatever's going on. But back then, with the oldest, 10-year-old technology, we were doing that. And I know the stresses involved in that because I was trying to monitor the stream and, layering crayons, the little headers saying who was speaking and what was going on top of that. But
Well,
yeah, it was
you made
quite a feat.
history. Well, kudos to you because you made history and you leveraged technology at the time that enabled you to do what to connect with people and share. And I'm looking at the satellite locations. I mean, there were many. And as far as Melbourne, Australia, Michigan, Quebec, Nebraska, British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Winnipeg, Peterborough, Peace River, and Guelph, Brampton, Hamilton, Windsor. So kudos to you for taking that leap of faith and doing something risky. And but look at the transformation in the people, the collaboration, and the inspiration. I mean, having had the opportunity to meet you and others that I'd never met before, I just took my, it's that growth mindset, that innovator's mindset, if you want to call it, and just exploring new adventures, right? And a good segue to that is the Unplugged conferences that came after this.
Yeah, and I think we wanted to we saw the value in getting together, right, with other people who are sort of like us, struggling to try and figure out how can we learn together. And that did culminate with this that's on the screen now, is this idea about bringing people to a remote setting to actually write a book. So in Unplugged 12 and Unplugged 13, we brought educators by train from Toronto. Everyone had to come to
Wow,
Toronto,
I remember it
get on a
well.
train, 4-hour train ride up to South River, get off the train in South River, Ontario. And then some people had a 20-kilometer bike ride into the resort at Northern Edge, Algonquin, where we were sort of very unplugged from what was going on. But a lot of the people that were at TEDx sort of knew of, and in particular, my colleague Ben Hazard and Zoe Brannigan Pipe, who spoke at that event. They were my two main collaborators at the start of that, that made that happen. But when you bring people together to learn, and they have layers of trust built on years of communication through informal means like Twitter and social media and blogging, those layers of trust and understanding, it's hard to recreate that. So the bonds that people form through such project are things that sort of take people farther than they imagine they might have gone otherwise. So I've been very fortunate, but I think it's true to say that I've been about using tools and technology to bring people together and to help them harness the tools to sort of do more than they could do all by themselves. And you've been a key part of that, Robert, in the MindShare Learning Project, about supporting teachers who are trying to do those things.
Thank you.
With it, what those things, those projects, TEDx and Unplugged, just two little projects, but even things like the conferences that you sponsor and help co-host, those things, they're invaluable. And so I just want to say thank you for sort of trusting the teachers that were trying to do stuff to help them make it happen, because it wouldn't have been possible without you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it takes a village, right? And it's never been more important today. And my one of my favorite lines is, it takes a digital village in the 21st century to raise a child. And look at us today. Look at us making that digital leap and supporting teachers who have not had the opportunities for a variety of reasons. They didn't have access to technology. A lot of teachers who aren't making that transition, it's because of the lack of resources, PD, etc. And here we are. This is one of the most transformational periods in our lives right now. We're smack in the middle of it. I'm reading about the Renaissance era, and the Renaissance era was a precursor to the bubonic plague. So where there's mass adversity, you have mass transformation. And the human spirit, I mean, look at that photo. That's a legendary shot right there. And you were one of the key conspirators in all this, and the catalyst to bring these who weren't necessarily leaders, but they were passionate about making an impact and had a vision. And how many of those leaders have gone on? Teachers that went on to be awesome leaders is amazing, right?
It really is. I'm looking at Stephen Hurley in the middle of this photo. The
Yeah,
voiceed.ca started at this event, really, when they started talking about
Oh,
an
when he was
online
doing
course
this,
that they were
when
all
he was
taking
doing
together,
his,
right?
when he was doing his channel, what was that channel, that radio
Yeah,
channel?
DS 106.
DS
DS
106.
106. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was a creativity environment where people go create stuff. But a number of the people that were at this event
yeah.
knew about that and had interacted there. Stephen heard about that, and a number of years later, voiceed.ca is the voice of education across Canada and North America in many
You,
respects.
over 20 years ago, when I met Stephen at the Dufferin Peel School Board, first thing I said to him is, "You have a radio voice. I see you in radio one day." And so I always take credit for his show and then a radio station. But no, it's incredible. It's the notion of mind sharing, if I can use that as I put that in the Urban Dictionary, by the way, mind sharing. Uh, and it really is about, the power of co-learning, right? I'm running a co-working space now, but it's not all, we're redefining the future work and learning. And it's that notion of continuous learning, right? That we have to embrace, and that is a challenge for people. I think it's starting to happen, but it's that continuous learning, the just in time learning, that really needs to be embraced, because the shift in what we need to know today versus 10 years ago versus 10 years forward, it's about future proofing our next generation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, some of
What
the
are your
things
thoughts on that?
some of the things teachers are learning to do right now, the tools and technologies have been around for a while, but they haven't had to use them, and it's out of necessity that
Right.
they're learning to use them. But once you learn to use these tools to get kids to collaborate on things from far away in virtual spaces, it's an easier leap to have that collaboration take place in the regular classroom, where a physical face-to-face collaborative project can come to life. And it's the mirroring of how the tools can harness the power and help you do these creative things you never could do before, along with that mindset of being willing to work together with people, like these projects, whether TEDx or Unplugged, as human projects that help give you life, right? They give you
Right.
a purpose to do something. So the work you're doing, you've got a higher purpose to tell those stories, and it's great if we can get students across North America, whether they're K to 12 or beyond, to have
Right.
projects that are meaningful and sort of open to voices and ideas from afar. Those real projects are going to possibly do things like cure this COVID situation, right?
Well, you're inspiring something that I'm just thinking about, and what's next for MindShare? We've created MindShare TV, and MindShare, share your story.
Yeah.
Storytelling is there's something there. There
Well,
really is something there.
that was a big part of the Unplugged experience. We had people like you had to go to that. This is, I mean, we're talking 8, 9 years
Yeah,
ago when we ran them, but you had to come with stories around particular themes, and you had to do
right.
some writing, and you had to share that in small groups and critique it and take it apart. But there are some great videos of stories that people told in that unplugged environment that are still out there for people to see. I'll share
Hey,
the link with you, Robert,
yeah,
so you
please
can
do. Does
sort of
does
see
that
some of that
train
stuff.
still go up north? I've never taken a train up north. I'd love to take. Does it still go?
Yeah, 2014, they shut it down. The government of Ontario shut it down, so it no longer
How
makes the
sad is
stop.
that? How
Yeah, it's
sad is
tragic.
that? That really
Yeah.
is. And so here, I have a crazy idea. Wouldn't it be cool to do a TEDx 10 years later online using Zoom and connecting with everyone again and just to do a reflection? I know you did one kind of a closed Zoom, but what was that experience like? It must have been kind of fun to connect with some of the people you hadn't spoken with in a while.
Yeah, I mean, the thing you come to realize is how much of an impact those people had
Right.
on your life, right? And on the path that you took and the learning that you did. There's no going back, but um, you know that you wouldn't have gotten to where you are without those connections. So it seems
Absolutely.
like it was one event in time, but those
Mhm.
people, you cross paths again in other places
Yeah.
and times and work on other projects together and continue to, promote and further the learning. So stories is certainly a part of that, Robert.
You know, uh, Mentorship is really critical to people's growth and learning. And I continually have had mentors throughout my entire life, and wouldn't be here today. And people like yourself, and sometimes you don't realize you're mentoring someone. It's kind of mutual mentorship, or admiration for someone, and you just watch their what they do, and you learn, and we all make mistakes, right? We all make mistakes, but I think that that bond that was created really solidified and crystallized for people their mission and vision of where they want to go, and they just went for it. And I think the challenge for teachers and leaders is instilling that in our next generation, in kids, and helping them crystallize their vision, because it's a stepping stone to something else. There's always something else. It's not that direct path. I didn't have a direct path. I was,
Mhm.
a sport information director. I studied sport management, and now I'm in ed tech. And it wasn't a direct, but we evolved, and it's that openness to change, leadership, and mentorship that really takes you into exciting places. It can, but it's that mindset that comes into play.
And it's rewarding when either as a mentor or a mentee, if you're actually helping people get somewhere,
Right,
it's great to see those things happen, whether you're involved in them or not, to know that you
right.
inspired some of that. It's really
Yeah,
positive for
and
both sides
whether
of the mentor mentee.
absolutely, and whether it's parental engagement, because I look at my kids and I coach them in soccer, I coach them in hockey, and involved with school council, and it's that nurturing, and it's so vital. Whether you're a parent or a teacher, listen. And I have to put this in one of my slide decks. Mrs. Fogarty wrote in my yearbook in grade 12, the only sign of life is growth. And she drew a little flower. And I'm looking at it. I kept looking at it and looking at it. And I'm like, what is she trying to tell me? And I pondered that all my life. And it really instilled, when I look back, it instilled the growth mindset in me. And I always referenced her. And I even told her when I saw her at a reunion. And so when teachers say, and you hear this often, I'm just a teacher, you are the most important person in that student's life from a parent's perspective. And you can never discount the value that you are to those students and the impact you can make with your words. I've become a real
Yeah,
fan of words, and
yeah.
words are powerful and they can be destructive or they can be productive and inspiring.
And you may never see the results, right?
You
But that
don't
doesn't
know,
lessen the impact. The impact is still very real. It's just you may be
right?
unaware of it.
Yeah.
Ripples go a long way.
And I'm sure, no doubt, you run into students all the time, and some of them probably are, police officers now. But no, but seriously, you no doubt inspired students who go into teaching and other career paths, and your own kids, and you're not necessarily your actions and your modeling can be very impactful, and it's that dinner table conversation, and it's, as parents, we need to do our part, and it's a journey, it's a lifelong journey, and it's an exciting one.
It sure is.
Yeah. And of course, then you choose to pick up on your extracurricular activities like golf and my hockey that we're currently not doing and adapting. So how are you adapting?
Well, I've got my indoor range that keeps me going. I've read
Perfect.
so many books on the actual the mental part of the game of golf. I've done a lot of reading in the past year or two. I've been retired from K-12, going to school every day for about 2.5 to 3 years, almost 3 years now.
Awesome.
And
You of course look very young to retire. You started very early, no doubt.
I started early. I was lucky that I taught a couple days right out of teachers college that gave me credit for a full year of teaching back in the day.
Wow. Wow.
And so I retired at least a year earlier than I would have normally been able to. But I have no regrets. I'm still a learner, and I'm still having an impact in helping teachers and students, and that'll continue. I can't see that ending.
Well, that's fantastic. And you mentioned off air that you reconfigured the computers and education course at Western, and you continue to do work in that area.
Hmm. Yeah. And I mean, teaching at Western, teaching my instructional technology courses,
Yeah,
integration of information and communications technologies. The courses that I teach are continuing to connect teachers to cool tools and cool projects. So the coursework is interesting, Robert. So the coursework that you do for me, if you're in one of my classes, you don't submit essays. You just don't do that. You
it's
do real stuff,
yeah.
and that's I think there's a lesson in what you ask people to do, and hopefully that pays forward to classrooms all over the place as
100%. I mean,
teachers continue to impact them.
that was much of my master's program at Pepperdine and at Tech, and it was very much project based and hands on. And although it was a blended program, I mean, I took a blended program over 10 years ago. I guess it's 13 years ago now that I graduated, and it was the most impactful experience I had as a learner, and took me to you know, uh, to in directions that I never imagined. And I feel very blessed to do what I do every day, and it's so inspiring to collaborate with people like yourself. And you're let's talk about your niece for a moment and the project you're working on with her. It's really cool, and we want to spotlight that.
Well, Natalie made a film after living on the coast of Vancouver Island there. She was at a place called Orca Lab where she was studying killer whales. And
Amazing.
she came to make a film called To the Orcas with Love. And that film at orcamovie.ca it's a passion project of sorts of hers, but she pursued something she loved, filmmaking and animals. And at the very beginning of that film, she talks about a book that she was read as a child called Siwiti, a whale's tale, I think, or something about killer whales. Anyway, that book, when she was a child, has now become a feature movie. And so I've been helping Natalie to bring that movie to audiences to classroom audiences, to teacher audiences, to student audiences. So I've been
Fantastic.
hosting her with some chats about orcas and whales and salmon, and meeting the characters that are in the film, from David Suzuki to biologists out on the West Coast, in the fisheries area, to people that grew up wild in the environment, to what's the fellow's name? Rob Fisher, who has his own films related to shark water, for example,
Wow.
and extinction, who appears in her film as well. Before he passed away, he was kind enough to shoot some videos for her. So that film, you have to link that, Robert, to your resource page. I know you got a resource page that you're supporting teachers with all kinds of stuff, but her stuff is all free as well, and open and usable by teachers or students that want to pursue information about the oceans, or in particular orca whales, orca killer whales, orcas.
Right.
But I'll share that information with you as well.
That's fantastic. Rodd, thank you so much for your time today. And I hope we can make this perhaps a series, or, a reunion of TEDx Ontario, or hey, why not an unplugged version 3? That'd be kind of cool.
There's lots of possibilities. First thing, we got to get past this situation where we can meet face to face again.
Yes.
And hopefully that's not too far down the road.
And hopefully that's on a golf course. That's my hope, because you would be a great mentor to me on the golf course. Little tip, I started doing yoga this past year. I played with my buddy down in Phoenix, and he said to me after about half the round, said, "What did you do to your golf game? How did you improve it?" I said, "Honestly, I have not done a single thing except play yoga or do yoga." And it helped my core, my balance, and my mindset. And it shaved off at least 5 strokes in my game.
Outstanding.
So if you want to bring that down to 0 and then join the seniors tour, all I ask is you give me credit when you win your first championship.
If yoga plays a part, you'll get all the credit.
Rodd Lucier, pioneer, educator, golf aficionado from London, Ontario. Oh, from Kamoka, Ontario. Let's give you your town credit. Thank you so much again for your time.
You're welcome, Robert. Thanks a lot.
My name is Robert Mardlacci, the MindShare Learning Report. Be sure to check out www.MindShare Learning to get your latest issue. Until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, and keep the digital learning curve steep.